Hey guys, welcome back to building our pergola vlog. So today we have 4 5x5s that we need for the header beams and for the tie beams loaded up over here. They are super soggy, they're 12 feet long. If we get through those 4 5x5s today, meaning that we get the tenons done on them, then I'm going to call it a successful day. That's a lot of work to get done, especially since the tenons are 9.5 inches long. They're through wedged tenons, so they go past the post and they're wedged on the opposite side. I chose this because I wanted to display a variety of joinery for this project. So not because it's the best one to do for this, but just because I kind of felt like it. So to make those tenons, I'm going to use something a little bit non-traditional. I'm going to be using a chainsaw. So here's an electric Craftsman chainsaw. I think it's about 14 inches long. So you really don't need very much because it has this table down here. And so you can see from here to pretty much the start of the cutting end is about, I would say that's 8 or 9 inches. So that's a good amount of cutting depth. So usually you see chainsaw attachments for worm drive saws, and you know, it's kind of hit or miss. So I thought this was a good alternative. And Skill Saw definitely sells their carpentry chainsaw, which is essentially the same thing, except it's very single purpose. So this is a good alternative and costs way less. So we're going to give it a try and see if it actually reduces the time that we take in making these tenons. So we're going to use this to trim up our tenon end and then to do the cheeks of it, so the rip cuts essentially. And we'll see if that helps out any. Let's get to laying out and start cutting some tenons. Well guys, I don't think that's actually any better because I have a ton of tear out up here. So when we do the tenons, we're going to have to be super careful and stay away from the line because I have tear out that's almost 3/4 of an inch into the timber. Yeah, let's see, maybe if we score it, we won't have that sort of tear out. Let's give it a try. So that's where my line was, but I ended up having to cut away from it. So you can see where it started to tear out and then stop because of that stop cut. But look what happened on the side. And so this is our first cut. And you can see the ton of tear out that happened on the chainsaw right here. So that's not the nicest of cuts. Anyway, we'll see if this is actually a viable plan or not. So guys, that took a little bit longer, but this is a much cleaner face, and now I can take my measurements from here with a lot of confidence. Although it took me a couple extra things to do, overall, this is going to be a better quality timber just because I took the 2 extra cuts. So I'm going to stick with this method. Alright guys, so on this first timber we're going to try a variety of things. We're going to do the circular saw to do the stop cut, and then we're going to take the chainsaw with that Bigfoot attachment and we're going to do rip cuts. We're going to time how long it takes, and then for these other ones we're going to try different methods and see which one is the fastest. I personally like the curve cuts because I'm comfortable with it and I know exactly what I want and how to get there. Some folks want to see some different things, so we're going to try them out. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set a timer and we'll see how long it takes. Alright, first I'm going to make sure that the depth of my saw is correct. So I'm going to do a sacrificial cut all the way at the end. Alright, and I'm looking for the depth of the saw blade on entry and on exit, and it's just a hair above the line. That's what I want. Okay, so there's our line. So that's pretty good. I could work with that. So I'm actually going to cut it on this face because I liked the way that the fence was on there. Alright, let's flip it over and see what the underside looks like. That's pretty good. So let's just do a little bit of chisel work and see how long it takes us to clean up this tenon. Alright guys, so this one took me 36 minutes and a half to do this tenon with that chainsaw and all those cuts. So I think it was pretty successful, pretty on track for a typical tenon, I believe. Honestly, if we use that chainsaw to streamline the cuts, I think it'll be quicker, but since we're doing one at a time and having to switch out tools in the meantime, it definitely slows you down. So I think what we're going to find out is that we're going to be quicker if we switch out the tools less often. For the next one, we're going to use a circular saw and we're going to do rip cuts instead of using the chainsaw. Not sure it's going to change too much on the time, but I'm willing to try it out and find out. Now this next one, we're going to use a circular saw. And the way that we're going to do it is not the typical kerf cuts that are kind of cross-cutting. We're going to do rip cuts down these faces. And I'll tell you, the reason that we're doing it is because people are asking us to, not necessarily because I want to. I've done it before and it's not necessarily the best. So for one thing, the circular saw doesn't have a depth to be able to cut past the half of this. So this is a 5x5. This is a 6 1/4 inch circular saw, something like that, 6 and something inches. And the max depth that it can cut is 2 3/8. So we saw it when we cut the ends off. We had that little bit that we had to come with the Ryoba and cut it off. So that's going to happen again here. Now the other thing that you're going to notice is that when the circular saw gets to the end over here, you're going to have this arch over here where the circular saw can't get into. So that's another problem. And then the last problem is that when we're cutting on one side, it's going to be okay because we're going to have a lot of this table resting on the timber. But when we cut on the other side, we're only going to have this small amount of the circular saw actually touching the material. And so the circular saw can then move up and down or left and right like this and can kind of wobble a little bit, causing a little bit of the saw to actually dig into the tenon or outward. So it's kind of precarious. We're going to give it a try and I'll show you so that you can decide which method is best for you. Because what we need to cut first is the shoulder on both the top and the bottom side. So now we're going to set the saw to max depth and do our rip cuts. Now I'm going to try to stay away from the line by about 1/8 of an inch. Now this is the tricky one because there's not enough table on there. It tends to fall over this way, so I need to keep constant pressure on this side right here. You can see we're much closer to the line and it's a much cleaner cut. But it was a lot more effort too. So we're at about 13 minutes right now. So if I can clean this up in under 20 minutes, then that means that we'll be faster than with the chainsaw. Hey guys, so we just got done with the second tenon, which was using the circular saw as rip cuts, as opposed to this one, which was with a chainsaw doing the rip cuts. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this one. We clocked in at 32 minutes. Now the thing to note here is that after I used a circular saw, I went and checked the time and it was around 13 minutes. So that means that it's about 20 minutes for cleanup per tenon, both sides. So does it really matter which one you choose? So this one with the chainsaw took us 36 minutes, and then this one with the circular saw was 32.5 minutes or so. I would say that the long leg is always going to be cleanup, right? So your chisel skills, your planing skills, slick skills, you know, what have you, is going to be the one that's going to make or break you. So as far as the circular saw goes, I was actually pretty surprised at how well it worked. I've had issues with it before with the saw blade not tracking very well with the line that I marked, but the timbers that I got from this sawmill were pretty darn square. We have some issues with squareness in some cases, but overall it's a very high quality timber, and it lends itself to square rule. Whereas some timbers that I've had before are just absolutely trash and you have to use some other method, in which case I had to use line rule, such as for the firewood shed that I have over here. Would I say that circular saw method is the one that you should stick with? I don't think so. I think that we just proved that both times are fairly close. You know, who's to say that it wasn't because I had to go clean up a chisel or I had to get the gunk off my plane. But overall, I would say that either method is perfectly fine. If you had to choose one as a final product, I would say that the circular saw method is going to get you as close to the final product. We'll see how much of this we get through. I'm going to stop jabbering because I need to get to work. Alright guys, so we're all done for today. So I had a lot of fun using this guy today. It was a workhorse. It's just a Craftsman 14-inch chainsaw. It's electric, has a reservoir for bar and chain oil, and we attached it to the Bigfoot chainsaw attachment. So it acts as a little plate where you can use your chainsaw vertically and cut these tenons to size. Learned a lot today with regard to using the circular saw or the chainsaw. Either way, those machines are going to do what they do, but it's you who has to clean up the tenon and make it what it's the final product. So most of the time and effort is going to be in chiseling. Okay guys, see you tomorrow.